3, 2, 1. Adam James, founder and managing director of Springup PR. Welcome to the Care Home Show.
Thanks for having me, Simon. Delighted to be with you today.
It's good to have you on the show. So, I mean, we've been talking about recording a podcast together for bloody ages. So it's good to finally have you on as a guest.
Great, and it's great to be here. And I've got a podcast of yours, which I need to put up. It will be done. People who are watching, it will be done.
Excellent. Well, that was a great conversation as well. So yeah, hopefully people get value from both of our podcasts, both today for this episode, and then if anyone wants to watch my episode with Adam, it sounds like that one will be launched in the not too distant future. And just so that you know, we're having a chat about culture and how to build a high performance culture in a care home business, which is one of my favorite subjects for
and just to add, hyper important right now. You know, the pressures on and the culture and leadership. But that aside, will be on the podcast that features you soon.
Absolutely. But you're right. I think at the moment, from the care home owners that I've been and leaders that I've been speaking to recently, everyone almost to a T has basically mentioned how important culture has been during the COVID outbreak. So hopefully I've shared some useful insights that will be valuable to people. But for the time being, what we need to do is to have a conversation about inquiries, because you are the man that helps care homes get inquiries. So I can imagine that given the current state of affairs, that you're definitely a man in demand. But before we go into just talking through your view on how care homes need to look at filling up their vacant beds, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and just a kind of an oversight, if you like, on exactly what does Springup PR do?
Yeah, great. Well, my background is a journalist. I'm a journalist at heart, and before I set up Springup PR, that's what I did. I was a journalist writing for a whole range of media. Set up Springup PR as an agency, and then pretty soon, as a journalist, I specialised in mental health care, social care, healthcare. And then when I set up Springup PR, we specialised in using proven PR marketing methods to help care providers get more inquiries and fill beds faster, using PR marketing methods.
Got you. So yeah, a hot topic of conversation for the time, and obviously the work that you're up to is extremely important. So, first question. So, tell me, what's your understanding around? So, what type of occupancy are care homes currently operating at the moment? Because obviously they've seen a drop in their figures. What's the indication or the feeling, or even maybe even data points that you're aware of to give people a kind of a point of reference for where the sector's at?
Yeah, well, I mean, care providers don't need me to tell them this, but they're able to see a massive drop in inquiries, massive drop in occupancy, the scourge of COVID and how that has affected their reputation and the national reputation of care homes as well. So having said that, I was speaking to a 5-home provider the other day. Their occupancy, get this, had increased during COVID. Now, okay. I don't quite know how that happens. I was just like, really? But that's an exception to the rule. Reality is occupancy inquiries have, for a number of homes, bottomed. Inquiries particularly have bottomed during the peak of this crisis, and therefore occupancy has taken a hit as well. Obviously, it completely depends on the care home and the provider, and a whole number of variables on how well infection control, whether they've been taking in clients from the hospital, etc., their testing and all of that. But yeah, you don't need me to tell you that generally across the sector, there's been a massive decrease in occupancy and inquiries. But there are exceptions to the rule. And obviously, if you have not been affected by COVID, that puts you in a very different situation.
Definitely. And I mean, the whole occupancy situation, it's a big challenge for care home operators. I mean, especially if you've got particularly high gearing from a debt finance perspective, or those homes that are in kind of predominantly publicly funded regions. I can imagine that there will be plenty of very stressed care home owners out there who will be breaking banking covenants, and because of that, they will be kind of under scrutiny from the people who've provided their lending. So it's a real tense set of circumstances that presents us. And I guess the frustrating thing is that even kind of the most proficient operators, the people who kind of under normal circumstances you'd bet the house on being kind of as clinically sound as one could hope for, they're equally being impacted by the COVID set of circumstances. So it's definitely tough for the whole sector. So, I mean, in your view, Adam, where do care home owners need to start, and what do the leaders of care home businesses need to do to start trying to get themselves back on track?
Well, yeah, so every care provider, this is a unique situation. Now, in terms of the COVID and pandemic, and it's a unique situation. What the future holds, and we've got forecasts and predictions, etc. But there's a degree of unknown here. But I think what's happened now, and I think this is reflected certainly in the conversations I've had, is the shock and awe of COVID has passed. The real shock and awe, in the sense of like this, I was speaking to care providers who were telling me that they saw terror in their staff's eyes. Their staff were terrified. And going back to what you were talking about, the leadership, about you had to step up as a manager, as an owner, to ensure your staff get through this. And what we are seeing is, those people who have stepped up, they are getting through it. The situation right now is what I am seeing, we're now, what's the date, June the 19th, when we're recording this, is that shock and awe is finished. It's like, we know people need care and they are out there. The need for residential nursing care is there. It's not changed. And inquiries and interests are just starting to pick up, build up. Now, I was on a phone call with a provider literally a week ago. While I was on the call with them, they had an inquiry. So inquiries are picking up. Depends upon your home, depends on your situation. But I think that's what we're just starting now to see.
Okay, great. So in as much as a lot of operators are going to be thinking, so what are going to be the most important things for them to start focusing on now? What key things do care home business leaders need to be focusing on from the perspective of getting themselves back on track from a marketing, from a PR, broadly from an occupancy perspective?
One thing I would say right now, never ever in the history of the care sector have care workers and care homes been so valued for the good work they provide. Never before have care workers been national heroes. So the public empathy and sympathy for good quality care, and care workers in particular, is as high as it has ever been. Mm-hmm. If you can actively promote, and during COVID, right now, actively promote and spread the word about your good quality care during COVID, everything from infection control, from how you're helping your staff get through this, all the activities and personalised care and dementia care that you've had to swivel during lockdown, so you've got to provide great care, all those things that you've been doing, how to keep families in touch with their loved ones, how to continue to provide good care under these circumstances. Never before, a lot of the wild work is making sure that local media cover the good news stories about your care home. And never ever before have journalists been longing to hear about your good news stories. Never before has it been easier to get your care home focused positively, and I emphasize that, positively on BBC News, on your local ITV, on BBC Radio, and all your local media. Why? Because, as I said, journalists are longing to hear about how their local care home or care provider is doing well. And so if you can feed into that and making sure, how do you do it? Look, you get in contact with your local BBC reporter, your BBC radio reporter, your local journalist, tell them, literally tell them about all the good things that you are doing. And they will be, great, tell me more. And you're going to have a contact then you can use in a very, very positive way. Let me be clear, every single care provider, care home, should be securing at least a dozen pieces of positive media exposure per year, at least, yeah? And even now, your chances are even better. As I state, for that reason, if you want to use the media and to promote the good quality of care, now is the time to do it. Same again for Facebook. And I'm not talking about day-to-day posts, where your posts to your Facebook followers might be read by, what, 100, 200 people. Use Facebook to reach tens of thousands of people in your local area, age 45 plus, so you can target your prospective decision makers, these prospective families. You will just get great outputs using Facebook as another means. This is just two ways, media exposure of Facebook, to promote your quality of care, everything your care workers are doing, everything about your manager, everything about your quality of care. Use those outlets to promote your quality of care to tens of thousands of people within your area.
So just to make sure that I'm getting this really, really clear. Okay, so effectively there's a very obvious, let's say, wave of exposure for the care home world because of everything that's basically going on. So what you're saying at a high level is to be able to ride that wave. And then to be able to do that, what you're advocating is to be able to capture the best of what's going on in your homes at the moment with everything that's going on, to create a positive news story. So to create that content and then to make sure that that content is distributed effectively on social media and with any kind of local kind of media outlets, if you like. So it's taking advantage of the wave of exposure and kind of positioning yourself effectively in and amongst all of the kind of narrative about the sector. Is that broadly what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. Now, you and I know the national media is a different scenario. Yeah, the crisis, the deaths, we know about that. The betrayal of care homes has been dreadful. But the regional media, where your families are for your homes, yeah, it's their agenda is different. They are actually really, really interested in your positive care because their care home for the media is their local care home. They want to hear about all the positives, and they will be very, very recipient to all your positive stories. Converse, the national media is not interested. You know, you're not going to get a story about your great, what you did during the lockdown to keep your residents in contact with their families, or how you built summer houses, or how you're doing infection control. National media aren't interested in that, but the regional media absolutely love it. Let me be clear, they absolutely love those stories. Mm-hmm. And as you stated, to disseminate that content, those stories, to disseminate to big audiences within those channels that you've just been talking about.
And from your experience, so kind of local journalists, people should be, the leaders should be trying to connect with, if you like, are these people typically are they easy to contact? Typically, can you connect with them through their websites and things like that? Do you call them up? Like, what's typically a good approach to try and get in contact so you can have that type of conversation?
Right, great question. Best approach: find out the individual name of any particular media. So let's say you're in Leeds and you've got the Yorkshire Post, or maybe even a newspaper or online publication which is closer to your area. Get the name of the journalist who covers that area. You can get the name by going on the website, phoning up the news desk and saying, oh, who's the journalist who covers this area, for example. Or I've got a story, which journalist should I be in contact with? And then you find his or her name, get their email address, and send them via email your proposal for a story or a news story. We tend to provide news stories on a plate. So literally they copy and paste the story straight because we write like journalists. But from where your listeners are right now, it might be a matter of just finding an email address, getting in contact with them, putting in a phone call, telling them what you're doing, telling them the story. Journalists are always interested in the story. So if you can feed them with a positive story, that's what they're interested in. So that's the process. And email, phone. You can even contact them on Twitter. If you're going for the BBC radio or television, and they might even have a Twitter account where you can find them and get their email address and start the conversation via email and then follow up by phone. Or as I say, find their Twitter handle. Often some of these journalists have individual Twitter handles. Almost they all do, to be honest. Yeah. Every journalist has a Twitter handle. Contact them that way. Start the conversation. Start engaging with them that way.
I'd say kind of from my own experience of working with the media, they tend to be quite time poor. They tend to be it's important to try and make sure that you summarize your message in quite a succinct way. So from my experience, you need to have kind of a good headline to try and catch them. So if you're going to email, put like an interesting subject heading, sometimes include a question as well. I find that tends to work. And to be able to try and make sure that what you've got is almost like a really nice, impactful, executive summary type approach to the story as well, just so they can get a snapshot and think, that's the story that I want to be able to run, and then you can start a dialogue with the person and to be able to elaborate on that wider story as well. But it's communicating with people in a way that's going to create a hook that people will get, the journalists will get excited about running the story, because as you mentioned, they want to run good news stories within their community. So being able to present them with something exciting that they can share with their audience is going to serve them as well.
Yeah. So look, I'll tell you how we do it. In terms of everything you said is absolutely right. So at the end of the day, all the journalists are time poor. All they're interested in what's the story. So this is how we do it. And by the way, if any of your listeners want examples, and I can give them examples of how these news releases actually look like, just let me know and I can send them. But literally, you've got the news story, as I said, written on a plate. So as you say, that email subject line is not hi, might you be, hi, a possible story. It would be like reminiscence, how Harold's benefited from reminiscence therapy during lockdown in Leeds care home. Yeah. So you're presenting the story in that email subject line.
Gosh.
Then in the book, bang. Well, yeah. I mean, I cover Leeds. That sounds like a good story. You've got me as a journalist. I'm a former journalist, so there's that knowledge creeping in here. I see that subject line. I think, great. Yeah, that sounds good. Let's find out what the email is about. And then, sure enough, it's dear Joe. Here's a possible story for you. And I've got the headline. Harold, age 89. Talks about how reminiscence therapy helped him during lockdown, something like that, imagine, at Leeds care home. And then you've got the whole story, 250, we tend to do it, 250, and your people, listeners will be able to do exactly the same, 250, 300 words, give the story on the plate to the journalist. What's the headline? I've given it to you. What's the key elements? If you can bring in human interest, quotes from residents, quotes from their families, quotes from staff, bring in the human interest, bring in the quotes, but have that story written on a plate for them so they can see it and they go, great, that's lovely. Even better, if you've got some great editorial photographs, they're going to use that. They've got their story. And then if they want to follow up with you, they've got their details to follow up with you if they need to. But the ideal scenario you should get in is literally you are presenting, as I say, the story on a plate to them. So they just need to literally put that into their media. Now, journalists would like to say that's not how they operate, but in time, resources, time with local media, as long as the story is good and it's factually correct, and it's not never do sales or marketing stuff in these kind of news stories, because they'll just get bins. You'll be asked to place an ad, so it has to be a genuine story. that promotes the quality of your care and your staff and everything you do. But it's a story, not an ad.
Yeah, very, very important. So you're selling almost the experience of the residents as it's a narrative. That's what you're trying to impart on people, rather than come and join our fantastic, come and visit our fantastic care home. That will be a likely outcome for people, because they'll see, oh wow, this care home is obviously dealing really well with the COVID set of circumstances, but it's not kind of a blunt sales message. That's the opposite end of where you want to be.
Yeah, exactly that. And again, it's talking about this COVID-free. Should you market yourself as COVID-free or not? Big question. So, in terms of what we are doing, we're helping and we're encouraging help. So, like, it might be, okay, which care home seriously want to make a big song and dance about the fact that they're COVID-free? It's risque, because we talked about this, because it can change on a dime tomorrow. You may say you're COVID-free now and make a big song and dance about it, but you might be embarrassed, humiliated, and somewhat stunned when circumstances change the next day or a week later. So around infection control, all the good things you have been implementing around infection control. I'm a journalist working on the local media. I would love to know about that. So you tell me, as a care provider, through the words of your manager, about everything you've done and why and what's been the benefits of it. Oh, and by the way, this has enabled us to, at the moment, be COVID-free. So you're not making a big song and dance about it. You're just bringing it in as a aside, which I think is a much safer way to proceed on this. So you're not making a big song and dance about it. But what you can make it a big song and dance about is all the great infection control that you're doing. And as a reader, I can go and read that story and go, wow. And as a reader, you are building up my trust. For care homes right now, the one message I'm sure they want to get out is trust. How can I get people to trust me as a care home? Well, there's one way to do it. There's just one way to do it. To reach big audiences, to start to convey trust.
I think that's a really, really important thing to think about. That's almost like the one contextual word when you're thinking about creating your collateral, whether that be marketing or PR collateral. It's what's going to build trust with people. What's going to help them understand who you are as an organization, what makes you special, how you operate as an organization. That it's giving people content that's going to enable them to trust you as an organization. And I think that the point that you made there was a really, really important one, because I know it's a bit of a hot topic of conversation around should people be marketing themselves as COVID-free. And I think just so I'm clear on this, so what you're saying is that it's not necessarily a bad thing to incorporate it in a wider message from a PR and marketing perspective, but it shouldn't be the message. It wants to be kind of part of a wider discussion, and your reasoning behind wanting to be step cautiously with that type of a message is because it can change so quickly. Or was there anything else as well that you think that people have to be conscious about when they're thinking about kind of labeling themselves as COVID-free?
I think it depends on the platform as well. So to do a paid ad, and imagine this scenario, paid advert or paid leaflet drops to tens of thousands of people in your area that we're COVID-free. It's like, it just sounds really, I wouldn't advise it, because it can change like that, but if you want journalists writing about you, it's another thing. That's not an ad. That's editorial. That's journalists writing about you.
Sure.
So, if let's imagine this scenario. A journalist got in contact with you and said, I've heard you're COVID-free. Yeah. Can you tell us how you managed to do that? I would sit back as a care provider and go, oh, that's interesting. So, but then if I was a care provider, I would think about the pros and cons of doing that kind of piece. But it's a journalist writing, so it's not me saying, but I would convey exactly what I, as a care home manager or a care home owner, would want to say is, we've been doing these things in infection control, we've taken it so seriously, PPE equipment, lockdown, testing, whatever it all is. All these measures we've done it very, very seriously. And, up to now, this is the results that we've got. Like everyone else, I can never know what's going to happen tomorrow.
Mm.
You're being honest. Honesty is key here. But what you have shown in that scenario is what you have done up to now has enabled you to have good infection control, good procedures, strict and robust regimes that enabled you, by the way, to be COVID-free. So that's a different kind of situation. So you're not, but all of that messaging, I think, is about bringing it in as you say, Simon, it's not like the headline. It's more like the byproduct of what you have been doing. If that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. For me, certainly that helps clarify it. And I think that getting the nuance in the wording, I think, is really, really careful as well, because you don't want to be coming across as kind of brash or salesy or anything like that. Again, that's kind of almost like the polar opposite of what you should be looking for. I think two of the other things that you highlighted as well, which again, from my own personal experience of dealing with media organizations, it was Robert Kilgour, the exec chair at Renaissance Care, told me this one when I was getting some mentoring from him. Bless him. He said, because I was having a conversation with a couple of different media outlets about one particular thing that we were working on, and he said, the media love a soundbite. So if you can create something that has real value that can be summarized in a sentence. So you mentioned, I think, captions from residents, from team members, from family members, all of that type of stuff as well. If you've got almost like you can peer review the narrative with other people's perspectives, then that firstly it reinforces the message, but then also from a story perspective and from how it can kind of be presented in a newspaper or on a website or whatever, having those things punctuated into the aesthetic of the kind of the end product, if you like, it makes it far more impactful to be able to read with those kind of different reference points and things as well.
Yeah, no, 100%. And so just to add on that is that I know if I walk to any care home right now, there's like good news stories here, there, and everywhere. If you work in the day-to-day in a care home, that it's your job. But actual fact, there are great examples of care. There's great examples of staff dedication, longevity of service. You might have a new recruit. You might have a new cook who's doing amazing cooking for people who enjoy, who have dysphagia or have problems eating, or are just a generally very, very good cook. Eating in a care home, foods in a care home. Wow, tell me about it. In terms of personalised care, the reminiscence therapy, or physical activities, how you've helped an individual particular resident. And 9 times out of 10, let me tell you this, residents and their families, if they've got capacity, are very, very happy to be involved in media projects. There are so many good news stories that are run-of-the-mill stuff as part of their job for care providers. But right now, like June the 18th, 19th, at the cusp of coming out of the worst of COVID, there's still immense amount of good news stories.
Definitely. One of the things that I've always been really, really conscious of is that in the social care world, amazing things happen every single day, but the sector, the people within the sector are often immensely humble. So you mentioned kind of it's part of their job. They feel like they're just turning up to work and just doing what they do, and it's humility is a wonderful characteristic to have. I often wish that we could be not in a garish way, but more confident to be able to share the great work that the sector does. I think there's almost quite often people are fearful of doing so, or that they have whatever reason for maybe not promoting them as well as they might. And I think it's just really, really important now. I think because of the perception of the sector, we've got this spotlight pointed on the social care world as it stands at the moment, and not wanting to underplay the extremity of their set of circumstances. But whilst social care has been kind of playing second fiddle to the NHS for so long, being able to create plenty of positive narratives to shift the attention to the social care world in a really, really, really positive way, it doesn't just help the individual home improve its own brand and reputation within the community that it serves. It also helps support the importance of the sector, because typically if you haven't had any exposure to the social care world, you don't really understand why it's important. You don't understand exactly what it does. You don't understand how it fits in with the whole the rest of the healthcare system. So I think that just from the perspective of helping members of the public to understand more about social care and seeing that through a real positive light of the fantastic things that do happen in care homes, it's powerful, and I just think it's really important at the moment, more than ever.
Yeah, I did the numbers on this the other day in terms of national media. Okay, how many stories a year would they do negatively on care homes? Okay, right now it's in the dozens, it's a lot. But how many care homes do we have in the UK? About 17,000, I think it is, isn't it?
17, 18,000, yeah.
Yeah, so I've just got my calculator out here. So imagine every single one of those care homes. Just imagine. So let's call it 15,000. Let's call it 15,000 for the moment. 15,000 did just a minimum of 4 positive news stories per year for their home in the local media. That's 60,000 positive news stories reaching millions and millions of people. 60,000 positive news stories. Oh, it's on the calculator. I needed the calculator to work that out.
Nice.
So, in terms of being able to make an impact, every operator wants to make an impact for themselves. I get that. But in terms of the collective power of care homes to promote the quality of care that they've not done because they're too humble, as you say. Oh, yeah, the other day we found out one of their care managers had been a care manager after being a care assistant. They'd worked 20 years dedicated to care, loved their work, loved their job as a manager.
Amazing story.
Just what they do.
Yeah.
At this turning point, when everyone's scared to go and work in care, she's done it for 20 years and continues to love it. Thank you very much.
It's an important story, right?
So not only is it good news for the story, but if you are looking at good news story for the home, but if you're in terms of promoting their quality of care, their staff, etc., and their dedication, it's also, if you were to look at it collectively, nationally, just it's like a pinprick of the kind of massive impact, should care providers decide that that's where they want to go, have an impact nationally.
Definitely. And I think it's maybe if people had a comprehension of it's maybe that's the wrong way to put it, but to achieve any type of improvement, any type of transformation, and if we're talking about kind of the transformation of the kind of the public opinion of the sector, it's not one big thing that's going to make all the difference. What it looks like is probably 60,000 good news stories that help people to understand, that educate people, that give people heartwarming and wonderful stories about, again, the great things that do happen in the social care world. So no, I think that's really, 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 really powerful. And I think the one thing that I've been thinking about a lot recently, and this has been, I guess, my hypothesis has been validated by a number of care home business leaders that I've been speaking to recently. So I think in the past, people have said that if you get the quality right, everything else looks after itself. I'm with the decrease in the likely decrease in the demand in the sector. I can envisage that. I don't think that's necessarily going to be enough anymore. Yes, absolutely, people need to be delivering a really high level of care, but I think people will suffer, unfortunately, if they don't focus on marketing and PR, if they're not in a position where they're really pushing themselves forward and creating those stories, because ultimately that's their connection to their community. And from a trust perspective, as you mentioned before, I think the trust has been somewhat damaged because of the COVID set of circumstances. And I think it's up to operators to take ownership of that, because that's what they can take ownership of, and make sure that the great work that they're doing is being recognised within their communities, and just taking a, I guess, kind of a proactive approach to that. So I guess we have a similar message from that perspective, but I think it's just important for people to allocate that little bit more time around making sure that you're doing a good job of promoting yourself and helping people to build trust with your own home, and then that will obviously at scale, that will then add up to the improved perception from a public perspective too.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it makes complete sense. And I just, to add on to what you're saying, for any particular care home, there's so many variables as to why, in terms of, if it's about getting more inquiries, what any care home, they always have to, before we actually recommend anything, we have to say, okay, what are you doing right now in your PR marketing? What's your conversion rate for inquiry to look around, from look around to a resident? What are you doing right now to get so and so many inquiries a month? How many inquiries are you getting a month? How many from local authority? How many from privates? Once you know the numbers, the conversion rate, then it's quite clear. Okay, if I need more inquiries, I need so and so more inquiries roughly to fill so many beds. And once you have a very clear understanding what the numbers are, how many inquiries you will need, more than you have already, doing as much as you do right now, in order to reach a certain occupancy or in order to fill the beds faster, then you know where to go from there. But you have to have a clear idea of the numbers from the scratch.
I mean, that's one of the really powerful things about marketing as a whole, isn't it? Because it's a system, you can wrap data around the system and the process so that you can then track back. And I think if there are people out there that don't have a system in place around their marketing and their PR so that they can crunch the numbers, I'd say that would be an important exercise for them to be able to do. Because to your point, if you can reverse engineer the number that you need to reach out to for you to get X number of conversions and people moving into your home on a month by month basis, then that at least gives you an indication around the types of activity that you need to do to be able to get to those numbers. So yeah, I think that's really important to highlight the fact that the numbers don't lie, and you
it's all in the numbers, yeah.
You can really use that to your benefit as well. So I had a couple of questions from some people when I posted about our forthcoming show on social media. So Alistair Howe said, so is the typical summer respite season likely to be a non-starter this year? What's your view on that, Adam?
The respite?
Yes. Is the typical summer respite season likely to be a non-starter this year?
Look, it's difficult. It's very, very difficult to say. I think that the situation is completely unique, and I think that, as I said from the beginning, I think that the shock and awe has passed. People have to and will continue to think about care, and likewise for respite. During the summer, let's presume, we might have a spike. Who knows? It might. There is an unknown variable that we have here that we don't normally have. So I think, being optimistic, there's every reason to be hopeful that yes, the trust will come back, and it's about trust, and it's about care providers being able to demonstrate that their loved one can be trusted with you. So I think the trust is starting to come back, and looking at it optimistically, then yes, there's every reason to be optimistic for that summer respite.
Well, I guess only time will tell from that perspective. The other question, which I think we've more or less covered off, but maybe there might be some other points that you might be interested in highlighting on this. So Thomas Tredenick basically said, so with the number of inquiries down, how do you help care homes to stand out? So I guess we've covered that off, but I guess if you wanted to maybe round that particular point off, if there was anything else you wanted to say there.
Yeah, inquiries are down for a lot, but why? Because they don't believe in care home. Trust has gone down for reasons I and you and everyone completely gets, but it's changing. And as I go right back to the beginning, even during COVID and right now, over the cusp, now is probably as important as ever, to proactively promote your quality of care within the confines, within the parameters of COVID as a pandemic. So it's care within the scenario, because COVID is going to be here for how long? It's going to be like the flu. It's going to be something we just have to live with as a society, and care providers will have to live with as a society. So promote your home proactively above and beyond what all your competitors are doing, in order to show that your home is the one to be trusted and your home is to be noted amongst the others who are probably going, oh my goodness, what do I do?
Got you. So I think it's fair to say that your recommendation is to be quite bullish in your approach from the perspective of just making sure that you're getting that positive narrative out there, making sure that that narrative is in the context of the COVID set of circumstances, that you're not doing it in a way where you're just highlighting the fact that you're COVID free or anything like that, but that it's a broad positive message about the experiences of the people in the home, that people can buy into that narrative so that they can get that trust back in the whole care world. Is that's the kind of high level overview, if you like, that I'm hearing from what you're saying today.
Yeah, exactly. I will have one more point on that. And yeah, do it right now because all those reasons I've said. And, as I said, the appetite for good news is as strong as ever. Let me think about just moving on to Facebook. So we did a particular story for a care provider. Their radius was 30 miles, actually. And just the impact that you can have. So a good news story, which on Facebook, where you want to get friends to share with friends. It's different from media exposure. Media exposure, you're after media to write positive news stories about you as a care home. Facebook, what you want to do is get friends share with friends. So it's engaging, it has to be an engaging Facebook post that promotes your quality of care. So one we did recently for a care provider, boosted to for a budget of £100, let me repeat, £100, good news story about infection control, about how the staff is being protected. It reached 50,000 people.
Wow.
That one Facebook post. And had comments and shares, just went on and on and on. People sharing, commenting, engaging. Engagement is what it's all about on Facebook. And if you get your families and your staff and your stakeholders engaged, you start to reach these numbers, 50,000 with your good promoting, and they help promote your good news stories. So these are the kind of numbers that are at the tip of the fingertips of care providers if they, just do it, basically.
I guess it's where a lot of the time people have looked to rely upon their good reputation, which obviously the word of mouth is obviously the kind of the real the
driver.
Exactly, the best possible driver for being able to generate inquiries from people. But I guess social media and leveraging the media is your opportunity to turbocharge your effort. So it's just getting that narrative and that story into as many different people as possible. And again, it comes in numbers game. So the more people that have a positive perception of you and the home, the greater opportunity that you're going to have for more people making inquiries. And obviously you need to knock their socks off when they come to inquire, when they pick up the phone, drop an email or come for a show around. But then that's the next stage in that inquiry journey, which you need to make sure again that story, that the great care is being really, really highlighted and shown off and presented in a way where people can emotionally connect that, you know what, that this could be a great place for great Aunt Hilda to come and live, or whatever the set of circumstances might be.
Yeah, and you're right. It's word of mouth. Every single care provider who might be listening to this will go, yeah, word of mouth. Word of mouth is great. What you do know, as every care home provider knows, word of mouth is great amongst the people who already know about you, who are past residents. Past residents, usually it's families of previous residents. But that word of mouth is great amongst your network that you already have. If you want to amplify that word of mouth so more people know about your care, then that's what you have to think about doing. And another reality is that I can drive past a care home every single day, but I've got no idea what it's like inside.
I think that's a great way to sum up what's been a really, really enjoyable conversation. It's about amplifying that great message and just sharing the great work that these care homes are doing on a day-by-day basis. So, it's been great. Adam, real pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for sharing your insights today. I'm looking forward to hearing from people who have implemented some of these ideas that you've recommended. If people want to get into contact with you, how do they find out more about you and Springup PR?
Website springup-pr.com /UK, springup-pr.com /UK, or hello@springup-pr.com, or find me on LinkedIn, however any listeners might prefer.
Well, I'd imagine there'll be a handful of people who'll be really interested to have a conversation with you. So a pleasure as always, sir, and thank you so much again for your time.
Thank you, Simon.